Yes, this is the monstrosity that you are looking at behind me. I'll get into the specifics in just a moment, but yeah, before we get into that, just want to discuss what we're going to discuss, and that is my very modular workflow. I mean that in more sense than one. All things modular, modular synths, modular furniture, and modular music making from top to bottom. And I generally do this in 3 steps, and I have 3 different types of sessions. There are a lot of people that have adapted the segmented workflow. Shout out Andrew Wong. And I'm no different. The 3 segments that I split my workflow into are brainstorming sessions, composing sessions, and performance sessions. That will make some more sense in a moment. So I'm going to take a brief moment to describe what you're looking at. Then I'm going to record a little something. From there, I will take what we recorded, mingle it in hopefully interesting ways, and then show you how I perform with it. So if we're all clear, I'm going to jump into it. Ignore this modular grid. It was not essential to this part of it. Oh wait, I lied. Yes, it is. I'm looking at my lesson plan now. It's very much essential. So let's see, which, before I jump into it, Jason, which comments are we looking at here? The Twitch stream, the Zoom, I'm assuming there's no Zoom. Is there anything I can keep track of? Oh, excellent. All right. So before I jump into it, anyone who's watching and engaged, I'd like you to type into the chat on a scale of 1 to 10, how familiar you are with what you're looking at on screen at the moment. I'll give you a moment to do so. Jason, if you could feed those answers back to me. All right, this is good. We can get into the weeds a little bit. Ah, that's cool. Damn, 10 on the first. Sorry, you're teaching the next workshop. But yeah, I'll give you a quick rundown. If there are any clarifying questions, toss them out. You get the point. And let's look from left to right. Actually, let's start over here on the right, because this is sort of the brain of it all, the Wmd Performance Mixer. Everything is going into that. I'll explain the actual patch momentarily. But for anyone who has never seen some of these, although, yeah, we're done with a 7 out of 10. You guys are pretty knowledgeable. But because I prepared a whole little spiel, I'm going to go through it anyway. The Wmd Performance Mixer, that's this big gray thing right here, as well as the attachments to the left and the right, is a 10-channel mixer with 7 mono tracks and 2 stereo tracks. That's a lie. 6 mono, 4 stereo, as well as 2 send and returns. To the left of that is the 2HP Pluck, which is a physical modeling Pluck voice. Not going to get into that because I'm not using it. The Optimix is a dual VCA. The DPO is the best damn dual oscillator that I've had the pleasure of working with. But as you can see from this, I haven't worked with too many. So if the person who said 10 winky face, please send me modules. To the left of that is Pamela's new workout. I'm using that as a master clock over here. On the bottom is pressure points. With the Brains extension, which allows me to use it as a controller sequencer type of deal. I'm not using it in this patch. Let's move on. To the left of that is the Moddemix, which is a wonderful little dual VCA, which you can also do fun ring modulation and audio rate modulation with. Here's the Renee 2, which is a 3, but really 2 kind of channel multi-dimensional sequencer. There are walkthroughs on this module that are going to be that are longer than this entire presentation, so I'm going to move on. But it's, for our purposes, it's a sequencer. Tempi is a 6-channel clock source that has some fun modulation options. The Wogglebug is the master of all things random. No, I won't go into more depth than that. Maths is maths. You know what that is. And so that's this entire shared system case here. I started with the shared system. It's still my first love. And as you can see, it has since I got it, it has exploded over 2 different cases with some other fun stuff.
Do you know a Fadi?
I do know a Fadi. Fadi's wonderful.
Fadi's just joined the Zoom, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we didn't get. I actually didn't explain much about myself prior to this. So yeah, in addition to making music, I work at Ableton as a tech support agent. If you have technical questions, do not drop them in the chat. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But Fadi works with me at Ableton, and he is an all-around lovely dude. So that leads me to case number 2, which I'm going to start with this bottom right-hand corner. We have the Form S STS, which is a dual sampler, which I'm realizing right now I need to configure differently than how I have. Problem solved. I'm going to be using this for some percussion stuff. Over here is the Rx switch, which is one of the most underrated modules. It's just a simple dual triple input switch. Yeah. Basically, I'm using it as an additive mixture for gate signals. To the left of that is the Moog DFAM, which is the gnarliest thing to come out of Moog since ever. Up here on the second row, start on the right-hand side, manga style, we have the SoundHack Morphogene, which I'll be using as an end-of-chain effect. To the left of that, it's very hard to see these 3 apart, but keep in mind they're 3 separate modules. To the left of that is the SoundHack Herb Verb, a wonderful reverb that, for whatever reason, has mono ins and stereo outs, and I'll never forgive them for that, but otherwise it's a perfect module. To the left of that is the Echophon, also a SoundHack Make Noise collaboration. Wonderful echo module. One thing I love about it is that you can send feedback out of it and then through other stuff and back into it and have a super customizable delay line, which I did not do here, but is a lot of fun to mess with. To the left of that, you'll see here and up here, I have a couple of these blank panels. Huge shout out to Miles Mesner, who, along with his partner Aaron, formed Noodle Volts, which is the secret behind this little doorstop module. It's a module that is literally a doorstop. You'll see it in more depth later. To the left of that is the Tubatec Mewtune with the 2 expansions. I'm not using it in this patch, but you can use it for a lot of things. It's meant to be a microtonal multi-tool. You'll notice that I got the 2 expansions. Each one of these columns of inputs and outputs can be used for CV and gate output, and I have 6 here. The reason being that I have a... Oh, is it set up? Yeah, it's not set up. I have an Axolotl core, which essentially takes wireless MIDI from a Fishman MIDI pickup on my guitar, sends that MIDI into the Fishman triple play, and now I have 6 channels, 1 for each string, that is converting MIDI to CV. That's converting from my guitar into MIDI, and then the MIDI into CV, and I have a unique CV lane for each string in my guitar, which is a pain to set up, but very rewarding when I do. Didn't do it here though. Moving on. Up on the top right, I have the Black Fly Modular. Is that what it's called? Or is that the manufacturer? It's essentially a contact mic spring. You can get, there's 3 outputs. You can get a audio output, a rectified wave output, which I've never found a use for, and an envelope output to get some really cool springy music concrete sounds. To the left of that is the IntelliGel Audio I/O, which is essentially a stereo in and out module that'll raise things up and down from line level so that the Eurorack can interface with more traditional audio equipment, which I use to bridge with the second half of the rack. I'll get into that later. To the left of that is usually my Expert Sleeper's ES8. It is an audio interface and a module. It is currently in England being repaired by Andrew Osler, I hope. Andrew, if you're watching this. Anyway, we'll see if I get that back. To the left of that is maths. You know what it is. Yes, I got 2. Yes, I need 2. To the left of that is the Mordax Data. Man, I'm really glad I nabbed that. They were out for, I think, like over a year. Perfect Circuit put it up. They sold out within 30 minutes, and I managed to nab one. Yeah, it's incredibly useful, but I'm using it as a $400 tuner, so there's a little bit of regret there, but it's very helpful for my purposes. To the left of that is another blank-looking module, which, again, Miles and Aaron, thank you very much. This one is a fidget spinner that is a VCA, which I'm not using, but is endlessly cool. And that sums up the modular portion. I've already spent a bit too much time on it, but to give you a rough idea of what everything does, we'll get into the nuts and bolts of it shortly. But I would like to move on. Before I do, if there are any questions, shout them out. Going once, going twice. Beautiful. Okay. So here is the rough part. How am I going to do this? I know I'm going to do this. Okay. So everything that you see here is essentially... Oh, yeah, I should explain. Okay. So outside of the modular, mic noise, you're going to hear some rumble, levels going up and down. So outside of the modular, here we go. Up top, we have the Arturia Keystep Pro, which is phenomenal. I'm using it to control a couple things. Over
Hey,
here...
Chandler,
Yes.
why don't you stop sharing your screen so we can see all that stuff
sharing
bigger?
Look at you practical man, you.
I am.
All right. Here we go.
There we go. Yeah.
Beautiful. So up top is the Arturia Keystep Pro. I'm using that to control a few things. To the left is this little station that is running Endless by Tim Exile and Co. That is kind of deserving of its own workshop, but for our purposes, think about it as a stereo sound source that is going into the modular system. I'm using the Innovation Launchpad to control Endless, as well as the Sensal Morph. And down here is a Yamaha Psr32. Not sure if I'm going to use it. It has been rotting in my neighbor's house for about a decade. And when he saw that I was a weird synthesizer guy, he gave it to me, and I've been loving it ever since. And here, let's see if I can get down there. Okay, so here are all the wires. Below all the wires, you'll notice that there is a second and third deck. Let's see if I can keep my hand still enough to actually explain this. So we have the Boss SL20 slicer. And to the right of that, there's the Korg Chaos pad. Below that is a Digitech Whammy. The Whammy DT, which has the fun harmonic options if you've ever messed with them. And to the right of that is the Boss GT10. Now, I'll go into a bit more depth about how all that is routed. Oh, sorry, very shaky camera. Let's make sure this makes sense. I'll go into how all that's routed momentarily. But for now, if you had any questions about what the blinking lights were, you now know what to Google. So, excellent. Let's move on, shall we? So, very briefly, like I said, everything's going into the Wmd Performance Mixer. And you won't have to know too much about what's going on in there right now, but I'll just go channel by channel. The first channel is the Moog DFAM, which is being controlled by the Keystep for fun percussiveness. The second channel is a monophonic synth line. That is the Keystep the Keystep controlling the DPO, the final output, as well as the saw output on the left. Those two are synchronized. Channels 3 and 4 are the left and right channels of the stereo triggered sample, that fun white module I mentioned that I'm going to do some percussive stuff with. Channel 5 is the doorstop, which is a whole lot of fun. Listen out for that when I'm playing later. Channels 6 and 7 are actually returns, or basically send-in return channels that are going to the Echophone and the Verb respectively. So I can have unique delay and reverb lines for everything else that's going into the mixer, as well as feeding them back on themselves, which is why I put them onto channels instead of the dedicated return inputs for 1 and 2 respectively. Number 5 is the mixer inputs, which is bringing the signal from the second and third rows back up into the modular. Number 9, which is on that black extender, is doing absolutely nothing. And 10 is actually just a stereo RCA input, which is currently getting the computer input from Endless over here and inserting that into the modular realm. So, if your eyes haven't glazed over already, because we're 20 minutes into an Ableton meetup and I haven't mentioned Ableton Live once, then you're in luck because we're about to get there. All right. So if you're ready for the fun stuff, here it comes. Oh, I have a chat. I see the chat. Fadi. Yeah, the fidget spinner module is nuts. If you fidget spin it fast enough, you can get some fun FM stuff from it too. But I digress. All right, where are we? I'm in public girls. One sec. Let's switch over to this guy. All right, here's the heart of it. Here's the Ableton stuff. That's exciting. So like I said, I segment my workflow into sort of 3 distinct sessions. And I really like to emphasize none of this is linear. I'm presenting it as a linear thing for the purpose of today. And often it sort of, it's somewhere along the lines of the process that I'm going to show you. But, you know, sometimes sound design is first. Sometimes I just want to mash loops together. Sometimes I just want to perform. Actually, that's pretty rare. That's something I have to do. But the point is, you know, results may vary. But let's hold on, checking things off. I was very organized. Here we go. But the heart of it really is this sort of brainstorming session. Also, if you're wondering why this clock up here is blinking the way it is, it's because I'm using Ableton Link to synchronize the tempo of Ableton Live as well as Endless, which is behind me. And that's why I have Link enabled. Amazing little tech. Anyhow, let's take a look at this. So you'll notice that this brainstorming set is split into 2 halves. On the left, we have what I call the id half because it's very loose and intuitive, and it's what I will essentially use as a loop deck for my modular recordings in a moment. And on the right, I have my ego half, which is essentially a bunch of multi-selector drum kits so that I can, create some rhythm and apply it to the harsh modular noise you'll hear momentarily. And the ego half is not going to the master track. All these tracks are going directly to the ego track. Same goes for the id. So all these looping channels that I will record onto are going directly into the id input, with the exception of these 2 resampling tracks, which are essentially listening to the id and ego outputs respectively. And I can use them once I have several loops going to record into, which I'm doing a lot of talking. I'm tired of the talking. I'm going to play momentarily, but the last important thing that I really wanted to drive home with this is the point of having such a strict setup is that I can reuse all of this. And so you'll notice that, here we go. I use a pretty strict tagging system. As I loop, all of these are listening to the same channels. If I'm playing a bass line, I can record it onto the percussion line, but it would make sense to record it onto the bass line. There's bass, melody, harmony, percussion over here. And I'm just sort of using this as a general guideline to record onto as I go. And the reason being that when I save this live session, any audio file that is recorded onto this track or any other track will inherit the name of the track that it's recorded onto. So if I record it onto id perk parentheses mn, then it's not going to record anything right now. But all right, because it was quiet. But if we look at the file itself, here we are. It has that name. And when I save this as a live set, if that live set is stored somewhere over here in Live's browser, when I search id perk, every single sample that I've ever recorded onto a track like this will pop up. For example, well, none of these are percussive. There you go. There we go. Yo, Miles and Chris. Oh, hey, and Buford, most importantly. There's... Hey, I just got to the tagging system. There you are. And this is the guy that made the fidget spinner module and the doorstop module. The mad genius himself. Yeah.
Nice.
So, that's the purpose of the reusability. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking and I'm just going to play around a little bit. and record as I go and hope not to train wreck. And I realized just as I was setting all this up that the camera is right at waist level. So if you end up looking at my butt the whole time, you know, that's just par for the course. All right, so this makes sense. What do I want to start with? Oh, of course it's not actually playing anything. There we go. I'm happy enough with that. A lot of it's mumbo jumbo, but the point isn't necessarily to make a listenable song. It's more to make a cache of samples that I can use later. And I know that sounds like excuse building, but it will make more sense, I promise. So, all right. So I have this loop deck. The first thing I want to do is give it some context. I'm going to make just a couple of basic drums. And then... Oh, also, if it wasn't clear, I have a push down here that I'm using to record, trigger, and, you know, create loops. Sorry that there's not a more cinematic angle, but hopefully it makes sense still. All right, cool. Between the drum loop that I just made over here on the ego side and the loops that I recorded over here on the id side, it doesn't sound like much, but it really is enough to make an entire song with enough aggressive and unfettered resampling, like you'll see in a moment. So let's see. Oh, I left out the coolest part. Now, you'll notice... Hopefully you can. My zoom window is in the way. There is this 2 modular track over here. I'm going to stop all the clips that are currently triggered. This is a send track that is going out of 3 and 4 of my interface, which is going back into the modular. Now, thus creating a massive feedback loop. And into the mixer I showed you on levels 2 and 3 of this rack that we saw before. to give you a better idea of what that's doing and why it sounds so screechy and feedbacky and awful at points, I made this little diagram, which was initially used for something else, but I'm repurposing here. So you can think of the inputs as this blue line. Hopefully you can see what I'm highlighting down here. Yeah, there we go. This is the input from 3 and 4 on my modular that's coming out of the send in the live set. That is inaccurate, but close enough. Whatever, it's enough to explain the process. Yeah, whatever. So that's going into the Boss SL20, which is this blinking purple monstrosity you see over here. It's more teal, actually. From there, that's going into the Chaos pad, and that is going into the tape inputs of this mixer over here, right? Let's get some audio going into there so that this isn't all just conceptual. There you go. All right, so we got this little beepy bloopy type of deal, which is really poorly synchronized. It's just, oh, thank God, I'm feeling better already. So let's send this to the modular. Right now we can't hear anything. Go out of live into the Boss SL20 as evidenced by the patterns that I'm about to switch. There we go. That's going into the Chaos pad. And that is going into the tape inputs. Let's turn that off for a sec. That's going into... Ooh, there's some feedback. All right, I could use that. But I won't. And that's going to the tape inputs. And this is where things get really hairy because the tape goes to the final mix, which I can choose either to send straight to the main output and back to the modular, or I can send to the headphone output, and then that'll split the signal left and right, with the right going to the Boss, which is the multi-effects guitar pedal, the silver thing down there. And the left channel will go to the Digitech Whammy, the red thing, which will go back into the mixer on inputs 1 and 2 and 3 respectively, which, same deal, goes to the main output as well as the headphone output. So anytime I introduce the signal to these two effects units, I'm inherently creating a feedback loop that is really difficult to tame. So to illustrate that, let's bring this back up. The headphone is coming through the Boss, and as I switch presets on the Boss, it actually changes the tone of the signal going through it. And if I raise the signal of that channel, you'll hear more of it bleed into the headphone outs. Oh, there's an individual headphone control as well. So here we go. And now I'm going to introduce the Digitech Whammy. Which is totally inaudible for reasons beyond my comprehension. So, yeah, that's a rough overview of the hardware loop and how that interfaces with live. Hopefully that wasn't too much of a distraction, but something that I think is just endlessly cool because I can just pump whatever I have in live through this really wacky guitar-based effects path and then back into the modular and through the delay and reverb sends that I have there, and as well as the end-of-chain granulator that allows for even crazier stuff. So basically, I can make and have made entire songs just from like resampling a single signal and adding drums, which I'll probably end up doing at some point here.
So there's a bunch of people on Twitch not asking questions, and so I'm going to ask some questions to try and get people started.
Sure.
And the first question, I'm going to go way back to you beginning making the sounds on the modular and things like that, how important is BPM to you? Why did you pick the tempo that you started at? You know, because you didn't start out at 120. Yeah. You know.
Yeah, that's a good question. I picked 135 here. And to answer your question more directly, it's pretty important. The first thing I do when I sit down is pick the BPM and the key. The reason being, and I don't know if this is where you're going with that, but if so, thank you. There was a gap. So here's the last 6 years of my music making. And you'll notice that all of the songs are just the date that they were created, the tempo, and the key. And so that's generally the first decision I make. In this case, I picked 135 because I have a lot of tracks in 135. And when I get to the performance section, that'll become, it's just easier to mix with stuff that I already have. So
it's just something I'm always curious about. Is I find like a lot of people, you know, gravitate to the, and they could have like, you know, 118 and 162 or something like that. But there's just sort of certain things, and you just went bam right to it, and you know, started working right away. Also, definitely the click track is your friend. You always make your modular sounds with the click track on in the background. To start, you know, I especially if there's no established tempo. Very often I'll start with just a basic kick or a drum loop if that's important. I'd say about a quarter of the time, though, it's just complete arrhythmic, noisy madness that I'll use to resample later on. So it kind of depends on the intention of the session. Yeah, we're getting some turn up your mic.
Okay.
Input.
I'll just have to speak closer to it. Unfortunately, I don't have any compression or anything, but I will yell into your ear holes from now on, I promise. And wrap this to minimize noise. I hope this is better.
Yes, okay, so much so.
Awesome. All right, we've gone into the ego and the id. We've gone into the manic track tagging and the project tagging.
Let me drop one more
wacky return loop. Yes.
Let me drop one more thing in here, because we got a question related to that. When you perform, do you do anything with click and performance? Are you like running a click into your ear?
No. I wish I had a performance video of something I've done recently. No. So the performance when I perform live, it's really just it's a much more stripped down version of this. I'm more using the modular as an effect and return send. So really just the hardware effects loop that I just described. Same exact concept, except I'm just pumping full tracks through it. And I have the tempo and the key of the tracks that I'm performing in the live set. But, excuse me, the tracks are so well organized. They're organized so that it's easy to improvise with, but kind of hard to screw up. Which is a little abstract sounding, but it'll make more sense when we get to the third part. But yeah, that is a good question. I will address it. Yeah. All right. Any other questions before we go?
Got a question in the chat, if you can see that there.
I can just ask it too. I was curious. You said when the feedback basically builds up, it changes the tone. Is it clipping something and driving it when that happens? Because I did notice that change when that happened.
Oh, horrendously so. Yeah.
It was awesome.
It is tameable if I really keep an eye on the meters, but it can get out of control really quickly. And I'm shocked that I haven't broken these pedals yet, because
You're using a converter of some sort, I'm hoping.
Sure. To go from I am to go from modular to line level. I certainly am. But because it's an untamed feedback path, the gain can just get out of control so quickly that the conversion doesn't matter. Yeah. So I'm playing with fire over here, Miles. I hope it doesn't cause you too much anxiety.
I think you should share a sample pack of some feedback to the crowd at the end of this.
Oh yes, I have many samples.
Share the wealth.
Yeah. Actually. So a good example of just fun with feedback is a complete nonsense. Yeah, so that was essentially it's probably a different talk, but that's just a 4-stage LFO. Well, so basically 4 separate envelopes where the end of one triggers the beginning of the next using 2 different maths. And those are just connected to a billion different things. But if I remember correctly, so basically if you think about the envelopes as 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 and 3 were controlling feedback that were affecting things that were happening. Sorry, 2 and 4 were increasing feedback that were affecting the signals that were coming out of 1 and 3. It's very abstract, but you can kind of hear it as it plays, which, can you hear it? Yeah, but that blum that you hear on the downbeat, that's the only signal that's actually being generated. Everything else is just effects and modulation. So feedback, man. All the feedback. Yeah. Thanks for sending me on that tangent. Let's see. Any other questions? I closed the chat window by accident. Whoopsie.
I think we're good for right now.
All right, cool. All right. So what I'm going to do here is make good on my promise that I can turn the BS that I just recorded into a full song. In order to do that, I'm going to switch over to the arrangement view. That is crazy. And just kind of play some stuff and record it as I play it. And the idea here, which maybe a magician revealing his secrets, but the idea is that what I'm about to record is effectively going to be the intro and the outro to the song that we will create. So let's give that a shot. That shouldn't be audible. Why are you audible? There we go. Much better. Okay. All right, not particularly good, but it is usable. Here we go. Do that. I'm going to delete the stuff that I didn't mean to record in the first place. And let's listen to what we came up with. And here, I'm going to try not to spend too much time, but I do want to just fix a couple of small errors. One, I noticed the drum loop doesn't really start on the downbeat, and there's a bunch of trash at the beginning we don't really need. Let's get rid of that. I'm trying not to try right now, or I'm trying not to fixate too much on the details, which for many of you is probably easy to relate to. Here we go. All right, cool. So we have this. All right, and for our purposes, this is plenty. I'm totally happy, but I do want to make it clear that these are 2 separate sections. This will be our intro. This will be our outro. Let's listen to it one more time to make sure it makes sense. Dubstep drop, dubstep drop, dubstep drop, dubstep drop, outro. Cool. Or good enough, because we only have so much time. Neat. So you may have noticed I was yelling to myself, dubstep drop, dubstep drop. And a big part of that is because I'm going to make a dubstep drop out of this. How, you ask? Well, this will be apparent in a moment. First, let's get some order in this chaos. This will be the intro. This will be whatever. Outro. Cool. And in organizing things earlier, I now realized that I deleted the drum loop that I was going to use as the basis for the next portion. So if you'll if you'll humor me, I'm going to look for a quick loop. Let's see. Great. One shot, one kill. I'm happy. Let's see. That is, I would be if we could hear it. All right, gonna do some minor alterations. I hear a little bit of flutteriness because it's going much slower than it should have. So I'm gonna change the beat mode to turn the transients off so that when it reaches the end of a transient as it's stretched out, it doesn't fill in that gap with more information. Now it's gonna sound kind of choppy. To make that sound a little bit more natural, I'm gonna reduce the transient envelope. I find that between 50 and 66 is enough for a nice snappy envelope. Maybe a little bit less. Cool. I want to reestablish some of that body, so I'm going to add in a... Oh, not bass. Oh, stop it. Oh, shit. Oh, I'm sorry. This is a family-friendly music-making stream. I'm going to give Live a moment to load the preset that I just accidentally selected. I think about my life choices. Oh, okay, sweet. That was a drum bass preset. Just as the good Lord intended. Change the frequency to 55 because our song is an A. Beautiful. Oh my God, it's about to get so dubby. You don't even know. It's crazy. Let's limit that to about -9 because that's what my modular likes. And here we go. We have a drum loop that I'm going to base an entire drop around. Listen to this, get used to it because we're going to marinate in it for a while. The beautiful, beautiful sounds of mediocrity. All right, so what I want to do is cheat. The way that I cheat is I take a fully finished song, in this case, the very song that we just made, and destroy it with Granulator. Miles, go take a break, because I'm pretty sure you taught me how to do this. The way that I'm going to do that... actually, that's not true. I'm giving myself some credit. This is... Although we are, so for the uninitiated, Miles and I are also in some circles known as Freeze and Flatten. Can I say shitpost? I guess like the audio shitposting equivalent of a duo. We released an EP a while ago that came out really good. I don't care what anyone says. Go look that up. And yeah, all of the song titles are just like deep audio engineering jokes. Miles, do you remember any of the titles offhand?
I remember one of them sounds dirty, but it's not, and you have to explain it every time you tell someone. It's like CCAC or something, or like problem due to user error or something like that. There was like precise. They're all standard Ableton related jokes that you only really know if you're a producer. So that definitely kept it entertaining, I think. Yeah, it's and it's my like one EDM magnum opus. It was a lot of fun to make. Anyhow, resampling was a big part of it, as evidenced by what I'm about to do. So I have this track over here. I took the resampling input, which is functionally the same as the master input. It's different in ways that I can't remember offhand. RTFM, yo. But I'm going to record directly onto it, and that little chunk that we recorded before is going to turn into music magically right before our eyes. If I can get this zoom thing out of the way. You might not be able to see it. I probably look crazy. There we go. Cool. And you know what? Because I'm feeling lazy, I'm going to do the same thing for the outro that we made. And so let's take this, loop the selection of time that I wanted, enable the punch out switch, and disable the loop switch so that it doesn't loop. And this way, when I record, it'll stop recording right here at the end of that section. Dope. Shortest song ever. All right, and I'm going to save this. Normally a lot more would happen, but, you know, listen, I'm trying to keep it moving. I'm trying to give the people what they want. And
you know what? In order to do that, I'm going to reduce the visual complexity. And as soon as this set is done saving, I'm going to delete this entire brainstorm. You know why I'm going to do that? Because we're moving on to the second section. That's right. You all earned it. And I made it just in time. The composing section, which I'm realizing now is probably a lot more sound design than composing. But, you know, here we are. All right. So I have... hold on. Oops, not that. Up here, let's call this the song. We're going to call this section intro, outro, right here. Drop. Neat. Okay. You know what time it is. It's time for some basic mastering. And here's the secret behind 80% of my tracks. The mild, there we go. The aggressive dance master preset. That's it. Touch nothing else. Your song is done. It's a very lazy approach, by the way. Don't do what I do. But I'm gonna flatten it here. And now we have hyper compressed clips of our intro and our outro sections, and a drum loop right here that's waiting for us to just dubstep all over it. And in order to do that, I'm going to create a new MIDI track down here. Actually, let's ignore this. I thought I was... Oh, wait, no, I do need that. I'm sorry, y'all. Okay. All right. There's a lot of ways to do this. Some people like stretching audio clips. Some people like using a granulator type of deal. Some people like grain scanner. That's my personal favorite and what I'm going to show you. But the point is there are a million ways to resample stuff, and I encourage you to explore them all if you haven't already. But for our purposes, I'm going to go into the packs. I have too many packs. Here we go. Toss down grain scanner because it's the GOAT in my book. This is way too much fun. And so the idea here is I'm going to drop in our intro section into grain scanner and then just absolutely destroy it. And let's do that as soon as it loads. I'm gonna sip my tea, think more about my life choices. There we are. Thanks for bearing with me. And I'm going to drag this little intro clip directly into Grain Scanner. All right. Now's the fun part. There's different ways to approach it. My favorite way is I would just call it blind ambition. And so instead of recording the MIDI and all the modulation, what I'm going to do instead is on this track over here that's titled Song Goes Here, instead of recording my microphone or some other input, I'm going to take the output from our grain scanner track. That's it. Record enable it. And also, just because it's mandatory, I'm just going to toss OTT on there. Why pretend that I'm not gonna? Because, that's why we're here. And I'm going to spend the next minute or so just making the most unpalatable noises that your grandmother would yell at you for and recording that directly into audio onto this track here. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to record enable this, and I'm going to switch push over to note mode. Again, you can't see it. Sorry about that. There you go. Oh, all right. We're already feeling very big room in this piece. And I'm not going to explain anything about Grain Scanner. Listen, you're all big kids. You can look this up. But you are going to see a whole bunch of stuff change on it. And hopefully that'll get you excited about what it can do. That is going to be done with very little thought on my end. Less talking, more grain scanning. Let's record it. What? None of you are going to tell me I wasn't recording? Just no one was going to say anything? That's
I brought it up, but I thought you were recording the session view, and because of the theme that you have, I couldn't tell if the track was grayed out. So I did consider it.
No, that's fair. Listen, that's on me. I'm not going to put that back on you. That's good because it wasn't.
I assume session view.
Wait, did I record into session view? No, I didn't. Okay, well that's a wash, which is fine because it wasn't particularly good. But let's see, the song that we're in is A. Let's try it one more time. I'm gonna make sure it's actually working now, and turn off this reverb because that's just unnecessary. Oh God, what did I do to the settings? See, that's the danger of all this like reckless back and forth. Hold on. Why do you sound like this? You know what? New grain scanner. All right, let's see. Here we go. Drop that down. Sip some more tea. Consider more life choices. It's decent. It's real decent. How's your night going, Miles? What's going on over there? That's fine.
I always like to say that we've all rebooted on stage once or twice before.
Thank you. Yeah.
Which I literally have, so yeah.
Oh yeah, who hasn't?
Yeah, there's a really good story of Dana Hafar. I think she mentioned at the last Make Noise thing that she intentionally practiced power cycling her modular to the downbeat. And I thought that was admirable. You never know. All right, let's see. Oh, okay, there we go. That's scanning some grains. All right, this should be a little more succinct. Another cool thing about grain scanner, and really just any granulating thing, very descriptive, is that if you drop in a full piece of music that is an even X number of bars and beats, if you modulate the position to exact values like 25, 50, 75, so on, you can actually very accurately hit the downbeat and spots in between them by considering even ratios. So to illustrate this, let me just get a... Wait, is this gonna... Yeah. There we go. So you'll notice that as I modulate to 25 and 50%, it'll actually hit that downbeat. So. And if you're granulating anything that is especially percussive, that's a really good way to get these in these cool timbres that happen directly from the drums. Total aside, irrelevant to the lesson. But let's get that distortion back up, bring the reverb back down, do some of this. That is armed. I'm gonna record, make sure that it's recording right now. All right. Huh. All right, glad I looked up because it ain't doing that. Why ain't it doing that? All right. Oh, I got an angry letter to write tomorrow. This is exciting. Okay, hold on a second. Let me consider this. I'm putting on my tech cap. No input, and let's send this directly to that track instead. If this works, I swear. All right. Huh. Well. All right, Miles, let's go with your idea. I'm just glad that I'm not crazy, because before, when it should have been recording, it actually should have been recording.
It's not just because your monitor is off.
I don't think so. No, it should.
It shouldn't be because your monitor is off. It's just that's the only difference I can see between all the other tracks. I don't know. First,
you solo and resample to a new track with just that one, maybe.
How many tech support agents does it take?
Yeah.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah.
I was just going to record it into session view and hope that clip works. So let's see. All right. What? Why are you like this? Okay. Oh, because that's going... There we go. Okay. Feeling better. Feeling spicier. Let's try this one more time. That's the stuff. All right, cool. This is good enough for me. Typically, all right, so because this is what we're going to be working with, I actually want to make sure this sounds good, which sounds ridiculous now that I've said it out loud. But the easiest way to do that, and I say this with all the privilege of someone who works in music tech, is just to toss this into Izotope Rx, let machine learning do its thing, and then toss it back into live. So if you have access to Rx, then this is a good little use of it for just mindless sound design, start analysis, again, life choices, etc. And sometimes this doesn't work. Sometimes it can actually reduce that high-end grit that you really need. So be sure to approach it with a critical ear. But if the intention is just to remove DC offsets or machine hum or just general unpleasantness without having to really start from scratch, this is cheating and I don't care. And it works really well. But it does take a moment to analyze. I
gotta say, this is really surprising. Just really? Based on, you're creating analog feedback on purpose. Mm-hmm. You're driving circuits beyond the point, that they're probably going to explode at some point. And then you're like,
days numbered on a lot of this.
Yeah, let's just let the AI make it nice and clean. It's just
yeah, yeah, basically. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. At the end of the day, I still want it to be fun, and I don't find repair all that fun. And if I can let a computer do that for me, and it genuinely sounds better, then I'm fine with it. That being said, I will go and do surgical stuff, if it really requires it. But our time is limited here. While this is loading, Miles, you want to plug the metal album that you and Chris are working on? Because you're part of this now. All right. Well, Miles and Chris are working on a metal album. I'm really excited to hear it. I hope you are.
Well, I totally forgot this was happening right now, so we just put down the guitars and we're like, all right, let's check out some modular stuff for a few minutes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, all right. We have our 3 AI previews. Let's listen to the original. I'm realizing right now that you might not be able to hear that.
Yeah, we're not able to hear that.
Oh, that blows. Yeah, because Loopback is taking it directly from live. Okay, well, I'll pick one myself, and you can trust me, I guess. All right, that's good. That's good. All right, cool. Yeah, let's pick that one. Just doing some light declicking. All right, life choices, Facebook. I think honestly, the biggest tip that I can deliver to anyone is be lazy. Use AI, but just don't get lost in Twitter while it's doing its thing. That's the hack. If you walk away with nothing else, just sit through that 30 seconds before it turns into an hour-long break. Yeah, here we go. All right, it's rendered. I'm going to trust it. I'm going to save this sample. I'm going to quit RX. And this is going to magically shuttle this back into live. And there will be very little noticeable difference to anyone who isn't me. Neat.
I thought RX was going to make it sound like Beethoven.
Yeah, you're telling me it's the same? Yeah, no, it's the same thing. Yeah. The last thing I might do, just because dubstep, is don't worry, Miles. 4 times over. All right, cool. And in the interest of time, I'm just going to stop there, freeze it, flatten it, and not check Twitter, not check Twitter, not check Twitter. There we go. And this is actually, all right, a few different ways you can do this. I know that the preferred method, if you have the time, is to go through this and I know it sounds silly, but really just take the time, surgically find the exact points that you would like to create your chops at and splice them up accordingly and then reorder them. if you're a lazy person like myself, what you'll do is select a random chunk of that material. Hold on. Delete the rest of it. Plop it down here. And let's see. All right, cool. So we have that drum loop, and now I'm just sort of going to conform this around that loop. There we go. So before I even consider what parts of this recording I want to use, what I like to do is just consider the rhythm that I want to put here. Because I'm going to add more stuff. Probably not this time, but generally I would add more stuff. And I'm just going to take this little chunk, copy it, and then plop it down every time I think it should exist somewhere. I'm going to disable follow because Zoom is frying my graphics alive. All right. Cool. I like this rhythm. I like it so much, I'm going to keep it and copy it a bunch of times. And one thing I like to do to just make a visual distinction between, like, you know, the downbeat of this little phrase and the rest of it is just to change the color. I'm going to take these and I'm just going to duplicate this. And if you listen to it, it's going to sound sort of like music, but kind of boring. And so on. All right, you're asking, how do we create variation? Very good question. You're very intelligent for asking. So the way that you do it, or that I do it on a Mac at least, is if you hold down Shift and Option, you'll notice that your clicker here turns into a little hand. And what that allows you to do is keep the same clip boundaries, but move the actual clip inside them around, like so. And you can move that left and right. And this allows me to just move through this big old mud pie of a recording and find the little bits of it that I think really work for this area of the song. So let's just, I'm going to listen to it a few times. I might even just loop this section. And I'm going to move this around until I find something I like. Ah! God, the screen. All right. Cool. Maybe increase the gain a little bit. All right. And then I'm just going to do the same thing for every other clip. That's actually dope. I don't want to change that. All right. Let's see if there's another good downbeat we can use. I bet there is. Probably a bit further down. Which if we look over at the clip here. Another way to do the same thing, especially if you're dealing with longer recordings, is in the clip view, if you just hold down Option and then move the start marker, then it'll have the same effect. It'll keep the end intact. So, but it won't allow you to move to the right because there's another angry letter I have to write. But all right, so let's see. Miles, are you taking notes? All right. All right, cool. And I can sort of adjust this as I go. I can, add little neat double hits. I can, let's see. I can split clips in order to make more fine loops. I add a split here, which is a bad place for it because that's kind of offbeat. And then now I can just... Or, all right, not enough variation. I can mess with the warp modes. For instance, beats. I'm going to bring this down to 16ths. Change the transit loop mode to off, which will have a cool little choppy effect. All right, neat. And I'm going to stop talking for the next minute or so while I try to make a song out of this thing. All right, here, if I had the warp mode enabled and hold down Shift, I can actually stretch the clip directly on the timeline. Mess with the warp modes. All And this is the parts that I freaking love. When I do love, actually composing stuff. I usually get lost in the modular for about another hour longer than I did. But here, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to exercise some gosh darn restraint. But, I'm just gonna have fun with it. I'm going to try not to think too much. And let's adjust some transposition. Whoa, what's he doing? He's doing all the things. Oh, that's funky. All right, cool. All right. That sounds weird because it's on beats. And this is the kind of thing you can just kind of get lost in for an hour before you actually... There you go. Before you actually listen back to the song. And it's counterintuitive, but I would actually encourage you to do so. Because I think that it's not going to sound bad. You've already established a rhythm. You have cool granular stuff. Every edit you do is going to sound okay. And to me, there's something really gratifying about spending a solid 20 minutes just like randomly destroying clips and then seeing how it sounds at the end of it. Which is going to sound so corny if this doesn't sound cool at the end of it. But let's see. We're almost there, y'all. All right. Let's just... Oh, you're a little too stretched. All right. You got to talk to your clips and tell them what's what. All right. Why are you doing that? Oh, I'm gonna disable link. You're just wasting CPU. All right, add a split. Do some of this. Also, this is all going through OTT again at the end of it. If you thought it wasn't, then you're sorely mistaken. But and there we go. That sounds Skrillexy. And pitch dive. All right. There's an ant on my wall. Do I stop this to kill it? It's a large ant. Nope. There we go. The things we do for art. Anyway, that's about enough. Let's just see how this sounds, Oh, before we do, hold on. Thought this was a game. It was not a game. Here we go. Oh, not enough OTG. Oh, that's because the track is quiet as heck. Alright. Nice. Alright, so far so good. It lost a lot of the bottom end. One way that I like to restore that sometimes is... This is actually kind of a vocal trick, but it just adds low to everything in a really satisfying way. And Miles, it's a Waves plugin. Help me out here. Come on.
I'm blanking on the name of it, but I know it takes the fundamental and creates like a sub oscillator. It's like a pitch tracking sub oscillator. I can't remember the name.
That one. I like to use that a whole lot.
Maybe duplicate the whole track, drop it an octave with Complex Pro.
See, this is why I keep you around. All right, let's hope it works because there's a lot of wacky pitch stuff going on. But all right, take them all, put them into Complex Pro, drop it an octave. Let's try it without the ot. All right, let's toss in a limiter just for shiggles. -12. Toss in a channel EQ. Carve out some of them highs. Leave some room for the other one. All right, let's see how these two sound. Oh, all right, we're doing something. Oh, here's how I illustrate this. All right, cool. So let's just call this glitchery. I like that. But it doesn't really sound like a song yet. And we could use to make this sound like a song? We can use one of the many, many recordings that I've made in the past. So let's see. Id Mel All right. And I'm just going to let this play and listen to a bunch of these until I find one that I think works. And I'll also know, because I've exposed the rank over here in Live's browser, that anything that has a rank has been used in a song. So I can sort of use that to cover my tracks. All right, cool. So the gain needs a little bit of work, but all in all, we're basically done. It's a 30-second song, but the process is more important than the final product. So let's see if we can make this a little louder and then go on about our lives in blissful ignorance. Let's see. Yeah, I don't, and now that I'm thinking about it, I probably won't have, you know what? No, I believe in us. I think we can do this. Let's see. Aggressive. Yeah, I'm going to use this on this, because why not? That's our song. That's our whole song, more or less. It's a messy song, but it's a song. How are we doing on time, Jason? Got another 10?
Yeah, got another 10 minutes. It'd be perfect time for people to ask questions about all your process.
Yeah, I've gone through a lot here.
Yeah, having seen all this, when I was looking at, you're showing me some templates and stuff like that. It kind of seems to me like you have a whole lot of structure so you can be unstructured.
That's a really good way to put it.
Yeah. Because it's like, here's a template, here's a thing, here's a rule about this, here's, I love the idea of ranking something so you know that you used it,
Yeah. I want to piggyback off that and just say that, like, I had the opportunity to do that EP with Chandler in the past. And I think you really did tap into something on that. Is working with Chandler is a lesson in controlled chaos. And that is what I find a lot of the time. But it's not too much over the top. It's like it fits right where it needs to hit. And there is some crazy shit that I've seen this man do that I still can't figure out. And he continues to amaze me.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. If there's nothing else, I think I have just enough time to explain how I tie this together in a performance. Before I do that, I'm going to resample everything yet again so that we have a finished song that we can perform with. Same deal, loop the selection that we need, disable the loop brace, enable the punch out switch, and start recording. So, if we pretend that this was all mixed and mastered, and here we go. You know what? Hold on. I'm sorry. I'm feeling fancy. So, no, it doesn't need another aggressive dance master. That's too much. All right. No more compression. I'll spare your ears. You're welcome. Let's see. What the? Did Fadi just walk into Miles's place? God, the Zoom chat is folding in on itself.
We thought there wasn't enough support agents here, and we thought you could need some support.
Well, thanks, man. Oh, the best. All right. Dope. So I'm just going to split this into 3 separate sections. I'm going to select all of them. I'm going to crop them. So now I have 3 distinct clips. And so that they are ready to be used in live session view. Cropping them should, place all the loop braces in the clip in the correct locations. So I'm going to go into each one, loop it, and loop it. Title them accordingly. Intro, drop, and outro. I really hope this is still an A minor. I haven't been paying very close attention to it, but I'm going to cut that out of there, paste it into here, and you'll notice that this is that all 3 of these. That right next to it is a track titled Color Key. Here's where things get hairy, and I have a couple of other tracks over here that are just labeled 135 because they are 135 beats per minute that are split similarly. Here we go. All right. All the clips are different colors. And what are they organized by? They are organized by general vibe. It's the only way I can describe it. If you remember the color wheel that you learned when you were a kid, there are primary and secondary colors. You have your primary colors, red, yellow, and blue, which if you were looking down on push, which actually, hold on. All right, let's hope this translates. You got red, yellow, and blue, which is this track right here. That's this color key track. You also have your secondary colors, which are orange, green, and violet, depending on who you ask. And red and orange are sort of related colors. These represent sections that are primarily percussive in nature. And yellow and green represent harmonic clips. Blue and violet represent melodic clips. And the primary colors are, primary sections like a drop or, a chorus. The secondary colors are secondary sections like a verse or a transition or something kind of small. And the reason that I use this system is so that I can mix and match loops from different songs again, without thinking very much about what I'm playing. I know the rough tempo that we're in because that's in the title of the track. I know roughly what type of section I'm going into based on the color and whether it's a primary or secondary color. And they actually pair kind of beautifully. If I use contrasting colors, for instance, red and green, a primary section that's like a big percussive drop actually mixes very well with a secondary section that's primarily harmonic. And that logic actually extends elsewhere. Opposite colors, contrasting colors of yellow and purple. Wait, is that true? What's secondary? What's contrasting yellow? Yeah, it's purple, right? What am I missing here? I know my theory. But a primarily harmonic section mixes pretty well with a secondary melodic section, assuming that they are roughly in the same tempo and key. And to illustrate that, I'm going to go and apply this theory to the clips that I've created over here. So let's listen to the intro. Cool. Personally, I'd call that a a secondary section that's mainly percussive. So I'm going to highlight both of these clips while holding Command, right click, and this allows me to, not very well, but allows me to see the exact shade of orange that I used in this clip and match the other one to it. And let's apply the same logic to the other one. God, that's like 80 things. But for our purposes, I'm going to say mainly percussive. Not because I think it's mainly percussive, although I think that's a big part of it. But when I think about pairing this with another piece of music, I think about pairing this with like something that's kind of sparse and melodic. So it sets me up to do that later on. And lastly, with the outro. Yeah, same deal. I'd say this is a secondary. You know what? Hold on. Let's listen one more time. You know what? I'm going to say this is primary harmonic. At least it can kind of function as that. And this is a good example of how this is much more art than science, this part, but it actually does pay off. So let's get rid of this color key track. And what I'm going to do here, also, yeah, I've already put this here. You notice that each of these tracks has a performance effects rack, racked, that's not a word, a performance effects rack that I've made myself, which just has a couple of basic functions, a high pass and a low pass filter, a couple of echo and reverb parameters, a master space parameter, and then volume, so that I don't have to switch to the mixer view on push to adjust the overall volume of the track. So if you'll indulge me for a minute, I'm going to play around with all these clips and really hope that they make sense. So let's see. All right, I'm going to pair this with a contrasting color, which is purple. There we go. I didn't have to think about any of that, which is my favorite part of all of it. So that's it. That's all the secrets. Whoever wants, you should go make a Chandler Tipton cover band. You have all the secret sauce. I'm retiring after this.
All right.
And that takes us exactly to the end.
Exactly to the end. It's almost like you rehearsed it.
I didn't. I promise you I didn't. That's
I believe it. Thanks so much for coming by. Really appreciate it. If you've never been to the Santa Fe Ableton user group before, this is kind of sort of the stuff that we like to do. Big thanks for Brian for being involved with this. He's Albuquerque user group. Helps run that down there, and somebody that I've known for a long time and does amazing stuff. You should check out Brian Botkiller. Anybody else want to like throw themselves out there for people to check them out?
Miles?
Everyone's so modest.
I was going to say, check out Fadi.
Yes.
Check out Fadi over here. He's awesome.
And Miles.
Wait, what's your page?
Your Main Arab.
Your Main Arab.
Yes.
That's him.
All right.
From,
Yeah, our resident techno god with a W.
All right.
Yeah, thanks for showing up, guys. I really appreciate it. And thanks for having me, Jason and Brian. This was a lot more fun than my anxiety said it would be. Yeah.
It's the tea. It's all in the tea.
It really is.
Get the tea, Steve, just right.
Yep, that's right.
There you go.
All right, do you have like closing words or like a mantra that you use?
We have no
collect all and
close.
save. Always collect all and save.
Collect all and save. Famous last words. Yeah.
That's actually the name of our EP. Yeah. Yeah, go check that out.
That's
too.
good advice.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, that's all we got for tonight. Thank you everybody for showing up and taking part. We always appreciate it a whole lot, and I hope to see some more of you soon. Join the group if you want to keep up to date with what we're doing, and next time we do something great, we'll let you know.
Yes.
Thank you to
Thanks,
everybody.
Yeah, thanks.